Okay, well, welcome this afternoon to our online Fresh Expressions community gathering. It's really great to have everyone here. This is the third one that we've had since lockdown, and they've all been really, really fruitful. And I think there's something about the kind of pioneering spirit that's quite prophetic as well, and the kind of entrepreneurial approach to mission and community. And this season really is a time where the pioneering voice, I think, is even more valuable, and there's so much to learn from each other, as well as kind of speaking to the wider church and other communities. So we're just really grateful for all your voices, and all the other sessions have been really encouraging, really inspiring to hear God at work, but also that time to just share the struggles as well, because it's been a long time that we've been in this space now, and it's quite tiring. So yeah, what we're going to do this morning, I keep saying it's not the morning, it's the afternoon now. What we're going to do is we'll start with a time of prayer, and then we've got a few people kind of primed to share a bit of their story, of what they've been up to and in their context. So throughout the session, we're going to be looking at two kind of questions, really, and it's all around this kind of up, in and out, outworking of relationships that are demonstrated in the maturity of a fresh expression of church. So we're looking at the out or missional kind of aspects of fresh expressions, and the in or ecclesial aspects of fresh expressions. And so that's what the conversation is going to be around, is those two topics. And the practitioners we've got sharing, they're going to talk about one of those themes in their story, and then we'll go into breakout rooms, which we've done previously and has been really great, to kind of then kind of talk in more depth in a smaller group about those two topics. And then we'll come back and do a bit of feedback, where you can put stuff in the group chat. There's been so much good content in the group chat in these last sessions that we've been collating and putting together. So do just put stuff down as it comes to mind throughout the session, and then we'll ask the question, what does the FX movement have to share with the wider church in this time, and go back into our small groups to kind of talk about that and then share that, because that feels something that's really important at the moment. Then we will go and just spend some time praying for each other at the end of the session. So that's kind of how it's going to play. I forgot to introduce, I'm Lizzie. I've started working Fresh Expressions in the communications side of stuff. I live in Liverpool. I'm a lay pioneer, and I run Story House with my husband, who is an ordained pioneer minister, and Story House is a coffee shop, a charity, and a fresh expression of church. And then we've got Tim to my right. Tim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, where have I just gone? That's weird. Yeah, Tim Lee. So I work for Fresh Expressions, doing 3 days a week as network facilitator and animator. And then I work with quite a lot of organisations, helping them kind of focus differently on their mission. So yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. And then we've got Simon, our tech genius, managing Zoom for us today. So Simon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Simon, FX Resourcing. God send out FX Resourcing website. Some webinars, if you've not caught the webinars with Mike Moyner over the last couple of weeks, that's come out of FX Resourcing, so welcome.
Really cool. Yeah, they were amazing sessions. Had loads of people attend them, which was great. So I'm just going to start with a prayer, and then we'll move into some story sharing, which will be great. So Lord, I thank you for this time that we have together. I thank you for all the people that are gathered here, and for how you have called them to serve you through creating fresh expressions of church around our country. Lord, would this time be an encouragement? We pray that your Spirit would be present, speaking to us, ministering to our hearts, and that there would be, just a time of encouragement and a time of envisioning as well, as we go from this place to serve in our communities in the time of of crisis and uncertainty. So Lord, would your Spirit be with us today as we gather, and would you bless each person here. Amen. So we've got some great people who have volunteered to share their story. So I've written down, I was wondering, we've got Keith. Oh, there's Keith. Keith, could you just introduce yourself and where you're at, and then kind of give us a bit of an update on what's been going on in this season.
Brilliant. Hello, everybody. My name's Keith, and I live in Kenilworth. So with my wife, we're lay pioneers in Kenilworth. It's a small town, about 22,000 people. So we're between Coventry and rural Warwickshire. So Coventry on one side and villages on the other, and then this small town called Kenilworth. Just as a background, in 2017, we set up a fresh expression called Cafe Sunday in a parish. So with the permission of the vicar, in a C of E parish. And it's not messy church, it's not cafe church, and it's not what you would perceive a traditional standard service to be that you'd be used to. It's kind of a mixture of all of those with a new outcome at the end of it. So we started in 2017 and we got 40 people to the first one. We ran it monthly. We got up to 60 by Christmas. And then just before lockdown, we were at 150. So things are going quite well, actually, in that. The majority of our audience are new families, people that we're reaching and bringing in. So two things that have happened in lockdown that we did that I thought just might be useful to share with you. The first one was around Easter, because of course we locked down and then suddenly Easter was upon us and we couldn't do the things that we wanted to do at Easter. So my wife and I came up with this. I mean, it's mainly my wife, I'll be honest, did all the work on this. We came up with this bag. So this is a Chinese takeaway bag. You can buy these in hundreds at a time. They're really cheap. And in the bag, we made up 40 of these for the families that we have regularly coming. And then hand delivered them all on bicycles around the town, me and our sons and stuff. So in here, in our Easter box, was another box. You can buy these from Craft Shop in boxes of 100. And in here we had items that you could use for the Easter story. So we have a peg Jesus and a cross and other things for the Easter story. And then to go with that, we printed up and wrote a 7-day thing of activities in here that they could do with that. Now, you may have seen this somewhere else, and we borrowed it and rewrote it and then put our own branding on the top. And then some songs and verses and books on the back that they could read. And then in there as well, we put some Scripture Union stuff, story of Easter. And then my wife also makes this stuff as well. So we handmade things like these clay hearts, where we put a little stamp on. Again, it's all from eBay. You hand make the heart, you stamp it up with a hope or a... and we've had a little tradition in our monthly Fresh Expression of giving out little tokens like these. So if we're talking about light, we might give away a little torch, or we buy little lighthouses, or just these little tokens that people take away. So there was something physical they could take away and pray with at the end of each gathering. And we delivered these around 40 houses. Now, the problem that we have with... we run Zoom sessions now on a Sunday every week. So we've moved from running a monthly Fresh Expression gathering, which was supported by small groups that we set up. Not your traditional small groups. These were very much missional community small groups, beer, whiskey, craft, flowers, that kind of stuff. So we moved from that to a weekly Zoom, but we couldn't run the Zoom at the same time that we usually would. We meet at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. We weren't allowed to do that because the traditional service of the parish was Zooming at 10 o'clock and we couldn't compete with them. That wasn't allowed. So we had to move to 4 o'clock. And the problem with running family Fresh Expression work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon is that if it's sunny, children are outside, or they've been out for a walk after lunch and they're not back for 4 o'clock, they're not ready to sit down. A lot of our families found that it wasn't a great time, but we didn't really have a great choice. So we've been attracting around about 10 to 12 families, which equivalent about 30 to 40 people to our Zoom, whereas usually we'd get about 140 into the hall for the actual physical meeting. So our numbers have dropped, but we found that the engagement of delivering something physical was massive. So even though those families couldn't get to the actual Zoom that we do, they could engage with this and use it and then send us comments back through social media and other ways, email. And we checked up as to who was using the 7-day Easter package that we sent, and the majority of them were in some form using the physical package. So even though a lot of our group and our gathering can't make the Zoom, because for under 5s, Zoom just doesn't work. We have a 4-year-old, it doesn't work. He won't stay still for more than 5-6 minutes, whatever we're doing. A craft would have entertained him before and engaged him, sorry. But now a craft on Zoom he just doesn't get it. So he shouts at the screen to the point where we have to move him away from the screen. Otherwise we'd have an hour of shouting. We're about to do a second pack, and we've been doing on our weekly Zoom, I'll speed up because I've got another thing to talk about as well. We've been doing the Beatitudes every week. We do a 5-minute talk on our Zoom, and we're now going to do a pack with a box of craft ideas related to every verse in the Beatitudes is our next one, and that'll go out next week. And again, that'll have some handmade things in there. We're about 40 packs, and we hand deliver them on bicycles. It's great fun, and it's exercise for us. Now, the other thing I just wanted to tell you about, apart from that, was that we wanted to do some gardening. And we have in our group, in our Fresh Expression, a doctor who is a single parent with 2 young children who rents a house in the town, and therefore has a very big overgrown garden that she's unable to maintain because she's either at work or taking care of her children. And doing simple things like trimming and mowing with 2 very young children is pretty impossible. So, so we got a team of 5 or 6 people to socially distance garden. So we rotated them, and one went round at a time, and took some tools, went in the back gate so they didn't go through the house, and did 3 or 4 hours of gardening for running over 6 days. So we had people going in every day, and we completely transformed this garden within a week. We painted a shed, we painted some walls, we trimmed it right back, mowed it, planted, put some pots in, bought us some new tools. The whole thing cost £30-40, which we raised from donations. And she's over the moon. She's a young doctor, and for us, it just showed a really practical love at a time when it's hard to do so. And we thought this was a really good way of engaging physically again with some of our gathering, and showing them that we care and love them and we're still around, and that the group still is engaging with each other and loving each other, even through a time when we're very distant and can't actually see each other quite in the same way. It doesn't feel, we don't feel loved in the same way. I don't think anyway. So we found this a really good way of doing it. So those are just 2 things. Very practically getting out there and putting these on doorsteps. We ring the bell, we just put them on the doorstep and we walk away. And then actually doing some distance gardening. Those are the 2 things I thought might be useful for you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. It's great to hear some practical ways as well, because I think you kind of automatically go to online, and it's a bigger challenge, I think, that kind of physical or practical expression of church. So that's so great. And with families as well, I think Zoom just doesn't work with kids.
It's hard.
So it's so helpful to hear, and it's also, I think, helpful when other people find the same thing hard, because you're like, oh, it's not just us. Thank you so much for sharing that. Also, if anyone's got any questions for any of the people sharing stories, do you put them in the chat, and then we can kind of explore that as well. But yeah, thank you so much, Keith, and I'm sure like in the kind of breakout groups and that we can kind of chat more. But yeah, I think those packs, that's awesome. That's so good. That's helped me a lot as well. Tim said Zoomageddon with his kids. So yeah, great way of describing it. So we're going to move on to Sarah now. Sarah, can you kind of share a bit, just introduce yourself and share a bit of where you guys are at the moment?
Yeah, so we would kind of talk today a bit about what we're doing out in the community and what we've done within our own community. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about out, because we as a Fresh Expression of Church kind of only really came to call ourselves church rather than like a team exploring it at Christmas time. So we met publicly out of the house for 1 week, and then lockdown hit, and that's it. So it's been really interesting for our community, who are kind of gearing towards, you know, trying to translate what we have been doing in the home and keeping the values of that, but making it accessible. And it's kind of been a real culture shift, because for us going forward online, inviting people isn't the right move for a first hello. So we're 3 family units at the moment, each of whom has key workers within it. So we decided to not put a lot of pressure on ourselves to go out and do all these whizzy things that are amazing. I don't want to detract from them, but it wouldn't have been loving to the families. And it wouldn't have been caring and kind to the families. So we all do little bits. So our local town council has been making face masks for free for everybody. So I'm one of the people who goes out and delivers them, and you know, we do little bits. So I want to spend my time talking about how we've been fostering a community inside our own community, when 50% of us are under 16. I'm not in that category, sadly, anymore. I know I look so youthful, but not quite. So we were a church that met over dinner. And so it's been really hard putting what we do onto Zoom, because it hasn't had that food element. The one thing we tried last week is we did a safari supper. So we did social distancing in that each family dropped off a course at each family's front door. And then we put it on Zoom. In our household, we decided half an hour before dinner that we were definitely going to put some ball gowns on. So my husband got thrown a suit jacket and told to put it over his pajamas if he needed to. But it was really nice just to eat together, because I think a lot of us are finding that what we do doesn't translate over to Zoom particularly well. And so that was a really nice kind of recovery of what we do. The other thing that we have been doing is doing games over Zoom, because a lot of what we do is participative and playful. So we've been doing games. So we've been playing like scavenger hunts, we've been doing categories, and that I find actually does work quite well over Zoom. And that for me has really engaged our young people, because it's coming back into the play model in a way that our other stuff hasn't worked quite the same way. I'm just going to share a bunch of ideas. I want to keep it to time, but I want to just share a bunch of ideas. I'm going to just give you like little snippets, and I hope that some of these will stick and some of those you will ignore because they're not helpful for your community, and that's fine. I'm also so distracted that I'm spotlighted. I'm used to seeing the tile and now I'm seeing my face. Another thing that we have been doing is we asked everyone for our worship slot 1 week to write down worship ideas. So everyone said, right, create a 10-minute worship slot. It can be anything you want. And that's been really great, because now everyone's kind of forced to write something, and my husband was like, and now we're going to do them over the next few months. And that's been really great, because we were finding that people were really defaulting to myself as leader in a way that I really didn't want. And one thing that we have managed to do over Zoom is encourage our young people in particular to be confident to lead things in a way that they're confident to lead on Zoom, that they're not quite confident to lead in person, which has been really interesting. So we did a Zoom worship where we all had to colour in certain words from a song and hold them up. We did one where we had to write a lament and then go outside and burn it. We have done one which was like kind of saying psalms and trying to kind of recreate the voice of sound of nature, all sorts of things. And that's been really nice to hear from our group. So those are some things we've done to foster community, is having a safari supper, playing games, sharing out the load of pulling together the service. And one thing we've also done is try to coincide our dog walks. So we're walking past the other people's houses. So we're not necessarily walking our dogs at the same time, because our dogs cannot social distance at all, but we're walking past houses, and that's been really good as well. So I've gone over it by a little bit, but I hope that's given you some ideas.
No, that's really helpful. I think getting everyone involved is so good. Yeah, and quizzes and games, they seem to work okay on Zoom, and it's having fun as well, because it's been so stressful. I think that's really important. So we'll move on to Andy. Andy, if you're able to, we're not great. I'm not great at keeping time. I feel like Simon is good at keeping time. So yeah, if you can kind of just for a couple of minutes, just give us a bit of a lowdown on what's been happening for you. That would be great.
Great. Am I unmuted, Lizzie? Yeah.
You're unmuted.
Great. Great. So we literally, so I'm here, I'm in Gloucester, part of Gloucester called Matson. We moved here last summer, basically to pioneer something from absolute scratch. So I'm here with Church Army, a partnership between Church Army and Gloucester Diocese. And really, it's on an estate, was about 7,500 people. Church hadn't really engaged on this estate, and really people just hadn't had the opportunity to even think or process about God. In the 6 months that we had kind of before lockdown, we'd started to build a little bit of relationship with a few people. And then lockdown kicked in, and we very quickly threw together a Facebook page. And we invited those people who we'd built a little bit of relationship with to like the page. And we very quickly kind of thought, what can we actually do on this page? So rather than writing stuff, what can we do that actually people could engage with in some kind of random way? And we found an old board game that we'd had. It had a roulette wheel with it. So we used this roulette wheel and we turned it into, instead of the Wheel of Fortune TV program, we turned it into the Wheel of Prayer. So each number had a street name or a community organization name attached to it. I spun the wheel, whatever number it landed on, we prayed for that organization. So prayer was right at the heart of what we did in terms of blessing and honoring the community and what was going on in and around the estate. We started to get a lot of people watching that, but then we tried to think, what else could we use with this? We then turned that into roulette prayer bingo. So people who joined us live could choose 3 numbers, and then as I spun the wheel, if their number came up, they get to choose somebody to be prayed for. So we kind of adapted it and changed it slightly. And we also did a thing called the Voice of Matson, where I kind of took 5 themes from the Psalms, and over 5 days I introduced each theme. So one was about motivation, one was about telling God something, one was about asking God something, one was about being thankful to God for something, one was just saying, and finally, because I couldn't think of anything else to finish, start with the letter F for Friday. And basically people sent in their recordings, we put it together. So we started off the statement by saying, I am motivated by, or God I, or God why, or thank you God. And people would finish off the statement themselves, their own words, their own things going on in their lives. And my teenage daughter put it together, mixed it together, and we put it out. And it's just amazing what people engaged with. We started to build a little bit of community out of that. A lot of stuff that we did was really just trying to reach out to the community and reach out to people in the community to see who would want to really engage with what we were about and what we were trying to do. Because really, we'd literally only had a few relationships before lockdown, and we were trying to engage in the community. And what's happened during lockdown is that actually a number of the relationships we had, people were sharing what we were doing live into all sorts of Facebook groups across Gloucester. We got into a little bit of bother with 1 or 2 of them who kind of reckoned that what we were doing just wasn't relevant for their particular group, and they got a bit stroppy. But these guys were wanting to share what we were doing because they recognized a value and a worth in what we were. And really over the last 3 months, we've started to see people really opening up about their lives, about their situations, asking for prayer for stuff. And there's an awful lot of hurt from the past that people are wanting to find some hope from. So out of our initial start live, and the Wheel of Prayer and the Roulette Prayer Bingo, the Voice of Matson kind of psalm thing that we did, we've now got a kind of a core community group of about 10 or 12 where we've done an afternoon tea. My wife made cake and we took it around to people's houses and we did a Zoom afternoon tea. We've started up a craft group. My wife started a crochet group with some women out of the group who wanted to learn and to start that. So there's all sorts of things that started to happen. So community is literally only starting to form, but out of us trying to be missional and honour and bless the community. And I think some of that came from 3 words we felt that God gave us, was to serve, to honour, and then to influence. But it starts with serving first, and then honouring, and then you gain influence. And that's what we're realising, that we had to serve and honour well first.
That's amazing. That's so great. I love the use of games. Like, that's brilliant. Like the bingo and the roulette and the game of life is so awesome. And yeah, the theme of sharing food seems to be coming out. I think we shared like the voice of Matson, like it's on, we shared it on the Fresh Expressions page, and it's brilliant use of the Psalms, which has been so helpful for so many people in this time. So thank you so much for sharing. It's really exciting to hear. We're going to move on to Jackie now. I haven't seen Jackie because there's so many different faces, but I presume she's here.
I'm here, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Signed by the magic of Zoom. Jackie, can you just give like really briefly just where you're at, and then a kind of story from this season?
Okay, so I'm a pioneer minister. I'm a Baptist minister, pioneer minister for the church was planted about 3 years ago. We didn't really go anywhere, so now they've put me in to try and make it work. But our main goal is reaching out onto a new housing development. So locally, there's a housing development that's going to be about 2,000 homes eventually, which when you live in Witney in Oxfordshire, that is 1/3 of the size of the town again. So it's having quite an impact on the town. So just see what we can do there. So before the lockdown, I'd been here since a year last April, and there's about 600 homes that are built. It's like a giant building site, really. And we had done a few events up there. We've done a community harvest. We've done a fireworks night. We've done Christmas, some carols, and we were getting maybe 10 people along, perhaps maybe 3 families. We were just beginning to get to know people, but the big difficulty was how to get to know the people, especially as I don't live there. I live down the road. So there we were, and we're only 6 members, and 4 of those were over 70. So when the lockdown happened, I'm left with 2 or 3 people and no idea how to reach out. But my housemate and I, Heather, we thought, well, what can we do? So we started, I joined the Facebook page for the development, and I'd been posting to the extent that the person that adminned it asked me if I'd like to admin it with him. So I've been putting stuff onto Facebook, just, little community things, advertising. And we thought, well, what can we do as lockdown began? So we went out, Heather and I, and we took pictures of the wildflowers on the development, because it's quite country, quite rural. And we put those onto Facebook in like a worksheet and said, if you want to go on your daily walk and spot wildflowers for your kids, here you go. And it was quite popular. So we thought, okay, what can we do next? And we were coming up to Easter. I think we did for Mother's Day. We went and put daffodils on people's doors. So people really like that on the Facebook. And then we were coming up to Easter. So we thought, well, what else can we do? And Heather came up with the idea of doing an Easter tree. So like a Christmas tree, but an Easter tree. So we made up craft packs for people with things like bunnies and crosses and Easter eggs and all that kind of thing in it. And we put them outside the sales office. And then on the Facebook, we made one in our house and photographed it. So we got a big branch, we got the craft packs, and we put them outside. And we said, we've made these hygienically. If you want to collect one, here's a picture of what you're going to do. Well, this just went viral. Or maybe 150 people started going online. We getting requests. What is it? I've been helping as well at a community fridge in the town, and I had the lovely joy when we did that of a mum coming up to get her food or walking by, and her son was carrying this huge branch, and I said, "Are you making an Easter tree?" She said, "Yeah, we are. It's a great idea." And then these trees started appearing in people's windows. So when you walked across the development, you can see these Easter trees hanging with crosses and everything all around. So then we thought, well, what else can we do? So we put up some bunnies on the signposts, and we put up 10 different coloured bunnies, and we said, you can't go on your Easter trail, but here's a trail you can do on your daily walk. Can you spot 10 bunnies? And if you can, and you want a prize, private message me your address and I'll bring you a prize. So 30 families responded. And so we went out and we delivered at a distance 30 Easter eggs and engaged. It took us hours and hours, engaged with all these families. And it's gone on from there. So every week we've been doing a different craft, and we've been putting trails on the lampposts, so that, and so people are coming and saying, what's the craft this week for people's children? Because it's mainly young families. But we've really, really started to get to know some of these families. We know their names. A lot of them asked to join on my personal Facebook. So while I can't put like specifically religious stuff, although I did put stuff up at Easter, some cartoons about the story, I don't want to overly do the religious stuff. I just want to be there to do good at the moment, on the main Facebook. But on my Facebook, I can put what I like. So all these people are hooking in and seeing what I'm writing, as well as what's coming up on the Windrush Place Facebook. So it's just been fantastic, and we're really getting to know some of these mums and dads. And then in the last couple of weeks, the sales office reopened, and we were leaving the stuff outside, and they're very nice, but they said, oh, you can't do that, it might have a virus on it, sort of thing. So we thought, well, let's go for broke. So we just put on this week's craft. You have to come and collect it at 10 o'clock on Sundays from 10 till 11. We'll be at this spot, come and collect it. And although we've not had 30 families, over the 3 weeks we've done it, we've seen 15 different families. And every time we're engaging and getting to know them, when I walk across the development now, people call me by name, people wave to us. One of the mums brought us a present to say thank you. And so there's this whole thing going on. So it's like we've connected now up there on that development. And as soon as we're allowed to do some kind of club or something, we'll take it on. But it's just been a really exciting time. So I've been doing that. And then the other thing that we've been doing is the community fridge, which is about, I was involved with it before, it had just started, and it was about collecting waste food from supermarkets and that stuff past its sell by but not its use by. And it's all about, it's an environmental project, and I've got involved in that. But this project has become the heart of supporting people in the area with food, along with the food bank. So 3 times, well, I'm there 3 times a week. We are there and we give out bags of vegetables, bags of bread to those that are vulnerable. So we see about 40 people a day. But what's been happening is, on the development, a third of the housing is social housing. So I've been meeting the same people on the development at the community fridge and kind of really getting to know those that are most in need on this new development. So for me and for our little church, it's just been a fantastic time. So yes, that's what we've been doing. So,
thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's amazing how it's grown, like from nothing, like during this time. Thank you so much. Really brief, is Jack here? I think.
Me.
Yeah, he is here. I've seen him.
You were on
Brilliant.
the next screen. Jack, thank you so much for getting in touch. Yeah, if you could just share what where you are, like we like just really briefly, like where you are and kind of what just a story from this time in lockdown. That would be brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. My name is Jack. I'm a free church chaplain at H&P Lindholm in Doncaster. So I'm a prison chaplain. I'm a lay preacher in the Methodist Church, and I'm just about to finish my master's in mission at Cliff College, doing a pathway in pioneer ministry, fresh expressions as well. So that's kind of my speciality, let's say. With the prison stuff, so I mainly do pioneering stuff in the prison itself. That's my kind of main mission ground that I can do it in. Before the lockdown, I was running, I was thinking of ways to do a fresh expression in prison, and one of the main thoughts I had was to do a book group. There's various reasons for why that is, because it keeps them distracted and stops them self-harming, and lots of reasons why I thought that was a good idea. So it addressed a need and the serving side of the fresh expression sort of thing. So I set up a book group once a week, and I decided for us to read through the Shack. We only had one Christian on. We had an atheist, a Buddhist, and a couple of other guys. They were just kind of agnostics, not really sure. And we're reading through the shack and we're just kind of going through what would it mean to know God and who this God might be, and address the stuff that the shack goes through, like suffering and that sort of thing. So I've been doing that, unfortunately, because of the lockdown, it had to be stopped for stuff in prisons. We're not allowed to do any kind of courses or services or anything like that at the moment. And actually, one thing I'm going to try and do when the lockdown lifts is something on the study of my dissertation for my master's, which is doing a meditation-based fresh expression in a prison, and what that would look like in a prison context and how that would work. So that's something I'm going to do eventually, but not something I've had a chance to do yet. But in lockdown itself, I've been surprised how little I've actually had to do in terms of connecting people with God. I think that God's doing a lot of the work and I'm having to do very little, to be honest. I find it interesting how when humans are doing such a, I don't want to say bad job, but when we're not doing as much as we should be doing as Christians, as a church, I find it interesting how he steps in and kind of nudges in the right direction. So, I think during this lockdown, as I'm sure many of you will know, a lot of people have been having the time to think about God and how that impacts their lives and that sort of thing. And especially for prisoners who are currently across the nation within their cells 23 hours a day. My prisons are working prisons. Within the prison, they have jobs usually, and they can go and do stuff throughout the day and exercise and stuff like that. But at the moment, they're in the cells 23 hours a day, so it can be quite a nightmare for some of them. But actually, I think over the last month or two, I've seen about 5 people become Christians. One of them received a New Testament. I can't remember if I gave it him or one of the other chaplains gave it him. But he read the whole New Testament in 3 weeks and become a Christian. He was previously Muslim, so that was interesting. I've had a couple of other guys just do the same sort of thing. All they ask for is a Bible, or they say to me they're interested in faith, and I say, do you want a Bible? And I tell them to read through Mark, just because it's just all gospel, and they end up reading it. And I see them a few days later, and they say that they believe and they accept it, and they have this great joy. I think that we all get when we become believers about this newfound excitement about God. So I found, to be honest, I've had to do very little in terms of mission and evangelism, because I think God's been doing the heavy lifting, so to speak, at the moment. And all I've got to do is be there and answer the questions and handle the Bible and resources. So it's difficult in prison trying to do a fresh expression, continuing it when, due to the circumstances of the lockdown, there's not much I can do. But with the circumstances, I've been very pleasantly surprised about how well it's actually gone and how many people have actually been Christians doing it. So I'm hoping as soon as the lockdown lifts and prison gets back to kind of normal, I'll run an alpha course or something along those lines for those who have kind of come to faith recently. So yeah, that's what's been happening.
Are you still there, Lizzie? Lizzie's internet's just failed by the looks of it. Having only just moved into a new house, it already looks like it's just dropped out. So great. Thank you, Jack, for sharing great content, a really interesting context, so different from, I think, although you could argue most of us seem as though we might have been in prison sometime over the last few weeks and months. But thank you. It's really interesting and great to hear in terms of, I like that concept of God doing the heavy lifting. That's fantastic. So brilliant. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So we're going to go into breakout groups now, just to continue the conversation. How is this working out in your local fresh expression? So if you like, what we're looking for is kind of, we're going to give you 20 minutes just to do a brief introduction to one another. And then just how are you answering these 2 questions? How are you looking at it in terms of building community, but how are you reaching out missionally, and what does that look like? What we'd like you to do is to just kind of, feedback something good that you have heard, that you've liked what you've heard over the last, what will it be, just over an hour. Whether it's about the games, or something that's kind of, if you like, captured your imagination. What is it that you think would be kind of that you've think, oh, I could nick that idea? Because let's face it, we're all into doing that, to be perfectly honest. So, what ideas have you nicked, and what has you thought has been just, oh, that's been really good, thank you. So yeah, if you just want to tap those in to the chat box, that'd be brilliant. or you are all muted. If you want to unmute yourself and just say something, then that's fine as well. That'd be brilliant. Will, do you want to? Yeah.
I was just wondering whether part of the listening is also listening to what is going on in the international and national news, and seeing how that works out in our local communities. So, obviously all this issue to do with the BAME community and the importance of racial equality. It comes to Oxford with the statue of Cecil Rhodes outside Oriel College, where we live just outside Oxford, and so on. But also we've got a post office in our village where I live, just outside the ring road, that has a couple who, the postmaster was accused of stealing money. And I don't know if you saw the panorama on Monday night, but it was really all about the injustice that's been done to postmasters across the country due to flawed computer systems that actually registered losses of money and takings and income that was nothing to do with the postmaster's fault, but a lot of them got criminal records, and some of them went to prison. And so we've got that couple who have been really living with a lot of shame and unfair treatment really by society. And so we're trying to gather around them as a village, and I'm trying to kind of galvanize support. That's all, so that we celebrate the fact that they were innocent and that they've been through a really tough time. But that's part of a response to a wider issue.
Yeah, and I think my observation would be is we've become almost more local in the last few weeks and months, which I think has been a good thing. So if you like, how you work out something on the national or international scale in your local context, that seems to me to be exactly what it is that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's.
Which I think is exactly what's going on, and I think it's really important, because otherwise it's not out there; it's actually here in me at home, and I can make a difference to it.
There's a lot of conversation in the chat about kind of trails, creating explorations or hunts in the community for people to use, and that's been something that's talked about as well. So that. And someone said, like, can we share the trails? Like, that would be great. Like, if anyone has any links to anything, you can either put it in the chat and we'll share it out, or contact us. That would be great. It's always good to share resources, I think, where possible. With the Where's Wally hunt, did someone dress as Where's Wally? That's what I want to know.
It was a really bad day to be wearing a red and white jumper in that town on that day. All sorts of people coming up.
I want to do it though, definitely.
It's like the old Hunt the Leader kind of game, isn't it?
Yeah.
It feels very familiar to that.
Yes, definitely.
I just noticed as well the whole thing of Maria about mentioning it was Tim Yao who mentioned about the difference between being guest and being host, which is a kind of a power thing, and it's a hands-off thing, which for me, the church really needs to kind of learn, but I think is an absolutely crucial thing. Some of you know I'm involved in an allotment cooperative, and actually it's been amazing seeing how many people have wanted to interact with that because of self-sufficiency, not sure where food's coming from next, all that kind of stuff. But actually I've had to take my hands off and let other people, and it's been brilliant watching it happen. I'm just joining in with it. So, Stuart, thank you for sharing the treasure hunt there. So that's, yeah, somebody's got that already in. And also just the idea about the trails, God for all, asking about that in our own places. Yeah, let's not reinvent the wheels.
Yeah,
I think that's really great. So yeah, if you've got, so I don't know whether, if you like, whether you can just email any of us, so Lizzie or myself, or Simon, and send that information in, and then what we'll do is we'll send that around to everybody when we type up the notes. So if you can do that, that will be absolutely fantastic. Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah.
Is anything else? No, I think that's about it.
Cheers.
Yes.
Yeah. David Bartlett.
David, thank you.
That's good. One of the things we did inadvertently was we made some videos, or not some videos, some still photographs with music of the villages for Thy Kingdom Come, to help people prayer walk around the villages, because they couldn't prayer walk as they normally would have done. But they ended up getting put up on the community sites as well as on the church site, because people sort of shared them. And the response to that has been great. And so many people have rediscovered things about their own villages, which they, how nice they were. And shared it with friends, but they've also used them as prayer things. So they're praying for their village because we were praying for their villages. And it's very simple. Just take a still photograph, make it into a PowerPoint, and then record it as an MP4 video to do something like that. Anybody can do it, so it's not a difficult skill. So that's something worthwhile doing as well.
That's brilliant.
Great, yeah, thank you, David. Brilliant.
Can I just share one other thing that is an idea that I didn't get time for?
Go for it. Yeah, quick. Go for it.
Very quick. All right. So one thing we do is run a board game cafe, which we were hosting it live. So one thing we've just launched again today is doing a board game delivery service. Something like board games are really expensive for families to purchase. But being able to kind of offer ours as a library service is really great. And you really build community, because what I always offer is, tell me what games you like playing. Let me pick something that I think you'll like, and I will tell you how to play it. Now that's often done in person, but so I'm going to translate that online. But that is a really lovely way of building community, because you really get to know the families, and they, and it's getting to share. We're more middle class families who can often afford things like board games. So being able to share in that way can just help, and it helps families do something together.
Brilliant. Great, fantastic. Thank you very much. So we've completely and utterly gone off the timescales, and that's absolutely fine. Ali's putting her thumbs up at that point. So if you like, the questions around what does the FX movement have to say, share to the wider church, I think we're just going to suspend that for the time being, and actually we'll probably do that again at another conversation, probably in a month's time or something like that, so that if you like, we can still do it. If you've got stuff which you want to share right now because you've already thought about it, then that's absolutely fine. If you could just type that into the chat box right now. So what does the FX movement have to share with the wider church in this time is the question. So if you want to do that then, but then, so just going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. But then actually what I want us to do is to just go back into our groups, which we've been in, and just pray for one another and for our local contexts and where we are. And then we'll come back and look at what it is that we want to do next. So I think we'll probably just, what is it now? It's 14 minutes past. So yeah, a couple of minutes to do that, and then we'll go back into our breakout groups.
I'm going to open the rooms now, but if you're typing something, then feel free to finish that before you then click OK to leave and join your room.
Okay, great. So welcome back, everybody. really helpful. And so I just, so if you like, some of the stuff that you've put in the chat box now, in terms of kind of where it is that we go to next, we'll write some of that stuff up and also work out. So Andy's asking a good question. Since we've got a new online FX community developing and growing, how do we continue and build on that? Those are some questions which we are, actively beginning to explore. So I think the question which we've kind of not answered is what does the FX movement have to say to the wider church? But if there's any stuff which you kind of want to talk about next, we're more than happy to hear what that might be, because actually it's about what the issues are for you guys rather than about from the centre, in inverted commas. So if you want to post that now, I'm aware some of you probably have got to go as well. So thank you for being here in this space with us at this time. Bless you in all of the variety of what it is that you are doing. And watch out for the Holy Spirit at work, because she is. And I find that thrilling. If you want to type those things about what it is that we do next, that would be brilliant. If you need to disappear, that's absolutely fine, and we'll be in touch with you. We're going to be hanging around for probably about another 15, 20 minutes. If you want to hang around and have a conversation about something else, where to get a haircut or how to make blackcurrant jam, I'll be more. Yeah, Rob, I've seen you. I know. Yeah.
This is a point where I stop recording. So
yeah.